So my question is, I feel I'm coming toward the tail end of running this novice progression, right?
Sure.
Hopefully, maybe, who knows? So how do you, to me, it's like, hey, once you enter the intermediate phase, how do you start setting goals as far as like, hey, I want to hit this in squat? Like, do you just I know you're not picking an arbitrary number. Like, do you just like pick it off like, hey, this is what I've hit so far. This is what I want to get to. Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So I think, one, it depends what your goal with this novice phase is. Because what I would say is on this novice phase, your numbers are, if I were to throw a strong enough numbers, pulling 450 for 5 is strong enough for what life's throwing at you. At the same time, I think you are above average in your genetics of running this, and you may be able to run that to 500 by 5 or 475 by 5. And I don't think you'll be able to do that deadlifting 3 times a week. I think sometime very soon you're going to have to reduce that frequency, but you may be able to run it. So I would say run it right now, right? Okay. Until it stops working and see where you get. And then when you start, actually the video after this podcast comes out that we'll have released Wednesday was tips for the advanced novice. And it's literally like exactly where you're at. Like, hey, keep deadlifting heavy, deadlift a little bit less frequently, keep squatting heavy, squat a little less frequently, that kind of stuff. But I think for goals, when people go and they run out their novice progression, generally what I like them to do is a test day. And I say, hey, you've done all this work, sets of 5. We've never let you do singles. We've never let you, test out because you're a novice. So why would you test out when you could pull another set of 5? But at the end of that, I generally like to give people like 2 to 3 lighter workouts and then say, hey, you're going to come in. You're not going to put on a weird bathing suit looking singlet and do a strict competition, but you're going to try to hit a 1 rep max on the squat, the press or bench, your choice, or both if you want. Both is fine too, and deadlift. And then like all this work you did, it's going to be higher than your last set of 5. So if you run this to 475 by 5, and then, maybe you pulled 480 for a triple or whatever, like you're going to be able to pull 490, 495. You're going to be able to pull something heavier than you've ever pulled in a workout. Mm-hmm. And I think that's super important for lifters because they kind of like they get a total, right? And they get these 1 rep maxes, and that's all they wanted to do the whole time. It's like they're at 225. I'm like, dude, don't max out right now. Like your squat's going to go up to 300. Like just keep riding it. And if they ride it, it's like, hey, now go max out. So I think that's step 1. And then I always tell people to like evaluate the whole health picture. I'm like, what do you want? I'll have a lot of people in the gym that gain body fat during that time. And I'm like, are you happy with your body weight? And they'll be like, no, I want to lose weight. I say, okay, here's the goal. We drop, depending on the male, female, how much weight, we drop 10 pounds over the next 12 weeks. But at the end of that, we hit all these numbers again. Right. And so like, I think setting goals like that can be helpful, saying, hey, I want to maintain my strength, but at a lower body weight, if that's the goal. And then it's, as you get further on, I like people to pick one kind of lift per, cycle. So, hey, I'm starting a new program, kind of intermediate. And I'm like, hey, this is going to be squat and maybe bench biased. We're still going to press for something.
How long is this cycle for?
Depends. I usually write programs between like 10 and 12 weeks.
Okay.
Right? But then just say, hey, at the end of that, I'm going to be okay if I PR my squat and everything else. Maybe I don't even test it, but kind of stays the same. And then I always think plate goals are good and round numbers, so if you, let's say your LP ran out and you were at 485, like 500 is a good goal. Right.
Yeah.
The kind of the next thing, the next 45 on like 585 in the deadlift is a cool number just because it's another plate, looks cooler, but I don't know. Does that answer your question?
No, that makes sense. Yeah. So it's kind of, if I were to sum it up, kind of what you're saying. So towards the end of the novice program, take a couple days off, we'll lift lighter, and then you do essentially a 1 rep max.
Yeah.
Correct. And then that kind of gives you a baseline of like, hey, here's where your 1 rep max is currently. Then you'll make a program based off two of those lifts, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So basically what we do I should put you in one of the channels of Slacks, but like our programming channel, it's a template. And generally I'm against templates for new lifters in terms of just plug in a squat PR of 315 and calculate out and do your lifts. But if you've actually run the novice program, then the problem that intermediate lifters have is they don't show up and they don't do stuff because it's like really hard. So in that one, it'll say day 1, 5x5 squats at 82% of 1 rep max. And so Trey's like 500 times 82%. Jordy's like 600 because I've been drinking milk times 82%. And everyone's kind of running the same program. And I always bias those programs towards 1 or 2 lifts to PR. Because if you run the novice program and you're a legitimate intermediate, I'm not saying you can't make progress on all lifts, but it's definitely harder.
Yeah.
And I definitely try to shorten down the workout duration, because that's the problem that I've seen is when I first started, it was, hey, you're an intermediate now, 2 hours in the gym, 3 days a week. No one has time for that. Yeah. No one does that. So if you're going to truncate it down to 70 minutes 3 times a week, something's going to suffer at that level of lifting. Yeah. So we're just saying, hey, this particular program, like you're still deadlifting. You're not like losing, strength in your deadlift. You're still pressing, but this program is focused on PRing your squat and your bench. And then the next one, I'll like do the inverse.
No, that makes sense.